And of course, this has to do with the fact that through the Jacob Zuma Foundation, the former president of the ANC, President Jacob Zuma, announced via social media that he's actually going to seek private prosecution against the current president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa. This has to do with his criminal case that is going on in the Pietermaritzburg High Court.
Corruption trial.
That corruption trial with Thales.
Yeah, it's a whole issue around Billy Downer, because he wants him to be recused. Now he's charging the president as an accessory after the fact to the breaching, allegedly, provisions of the NPA Act. So what does it all mean legally? We just want to make some sense of it, just to understand it. We are bringing in our legal expert, William Booth. Good afternoon, William. Thank you for joining us here on ENC. Just break it down for us. I mean, a private prosecution, president being charged. What does it all mean, and how does that stack up according to the normal process, let's say public prosecution?
Well, first of all, the issue with private prosecution relates to Mr. Downer and Ms. Moore. So the National Prosecuting Authority, by way of the Director of Prosecutions in KwaZulu-Natal, has issued a certificate. And based on that certificate, where they say they've got no case against Downer and Bourne, then Zuma has issued summons against them to appear in court. So that's that case. I don't believe that matter in any way relates at all to President Ramaphosa. So you can't just issue a summons against anybody for a private prosecution until you've actually first obtained a certificate from the Director of Prosecutions saying they declined to prosecute. So I'm not sure what case he's referring to in this letter from the Jacob Zuma Foundation. I've read the letter. With respect, I make no sense of the content of that letter at all. The letter that is referred to from the prosecuting authorities refers specifically to charges in terms of the National Prosecuting Authorities Act, referring to a case number, I believe, from last year sometime, and that has, in my view, nothing, but absolutely nothing to do with President Ramaphosa. So if there's some or other issue...
You are saying... Sorry, William, before you continue. Sorry, William. You are saying they have no grounds, there's no legal grounds to be going this route by the JZ Foundation against President Ramaphosa?
Well, not with regard to the issues that relate to Mr. Downer and Ms. Moore. So what first has to happen, whatever the charges may be, charges would have to be laid, let's say, against President Ramaphosa. The docket would then have to be investigated. It would have to go to the National Prosecuting Authority, and if they decline to prosecute and issue a certificate, only then can Zuma issue summons after he complies with a whole lot of other criteria for President Ramaphosa to appear in court. So it doesn't just happen automatically. So if this relates, let's say, to the Fala issue, that is still being investigated by the Hawks, and I don't believe any decision has been made, whichever way, by the prosecuting authorities at this particular point. So, you know, this information that is being sent out is misleading, and I don't believe it has any legal basis at this point, because President Ramaphosa isn't linked to the case of Mourne and Downer at all. So there's no indication that case has anything to do with it. And you can't, the certificate relates to declining to prosecute any person with regard to that particular case. And that doesn't, in my view, in any way implicate President Ramaphosa. It's not an automatic thing. You can only institute private prosecution if the NPA have issued the certificate. And then summons can only be issued if that certificate is shown to the person who's responsible for issuing summons and shown to whoever the judge is that may deal with the private prosecution. And that there is no such certificate with regard to President Ramaphosa.
Mr. Booth, it's Maseko here. I'm just co-anchoring with Bradan. So in terms of what the spokesperson of the Jacob Zuma Foundation, Mzwanele Manyi, said, he said they received a date for the 19th of December and that they expect the president 19th January, excuse me, and that they expect the president to be there and they'll meet him in courts, etc. So with what you're saying, if the president decides that he won't pitch in court on that particular date, it won't have any bearing on him at all?
Well, that's my view, but has he received a summons to appear in court? So a summons can only be issued if the person responsible for issuing the summons, that would be the clerk of a court or a registrar of the High Court, has received a certificate issued by the National Prosecuting Authority. And I don't believe that that is the situation. So you can't just say, well, President Ramaphosa, you must come along and appear in court. There is legal process that has to be followed.
Yeah.
And I mean, my view is it hasn't been followed in this particular instance.
Yeah, and just in terms of the criminal law process and etc., the president did respond through his office, the presidency, to say that he had given, the mandate to his Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, that's Minister Ronald Lamola, to deal with this particular case. So if anyone had to be added to the certificate that Mzwanele Manyi says gives them leeway to just charge anybody, the president believes that maybe the accounting officer, who is the Justice Minister, should have been the one that is summoned later on to this particular case. Do you agree?
Yes, but the point, I don't think that Minister Ramola has received any summons in any event. But that case, that the private prosecution certificate has been issued by the National Prosecuting Authority, it involves Ms. Maughan and Ms. Downer. They've already been summoned and they have already appeared in court. They are challenging the legality of that whole process in any event. And I think shortly that whole aspect is to be argued as to whether the former President Zuma has any authority to even have brought such a private prosecution. I mean, the NPA have said there is no case. So if there's no case, how even on a private prosecution can any person go to court? So you've got to establish that aspect first. So the prosecuting authorities have applied their mind, I believe, and have decided there is no grounds on which to prosecute anybody in respect of that case, because the letter refers specifically to a case, police case number. I think it is August, I believe, of 2021. It refers specifically to charges in terms of the National Prosecuting Authorities Act. Nothing to do with President Ramaphosa or any
Booth,
other.
I'm so sorry to
minister.
have to interject this way. We have unfortunately run out of time, and we have one more guest that we need to speak to before we need to make way for our colleagues Tulasiza Simelane and Sally Burdett. But thank you very much for your insight.